Did you know that it's possible to radically shift your experience of your reality? You've probably thought about how certain choices you've made in your life have led to new trajectories that would never have happened without that choice. But is it possible to influence your reality in an unexpected way, leading to new trajectories or timelines without a linear progression? This can actually happen, and it's not just a theory or an out there kind of notion. What does it mean to make a quantum shift and jump timelines? How does this affect real-life possibilities? Today, we're going to discuss an advanced spiritual concept on the cutting edge of what is possible with consciousness. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part of this episode. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing quantum leaping and timeline jumping.
I think this is going to be my favorite topic.
Yeah?
Well, for me, time is fascinating because it's experiential.
Yeah.
Right? And it was the title, Quantum Leaping, Timeline Jumping. It reminds me of a show I used to watch called Quantum Leap. And I loved that show. I would never miss it. Like, I'd literally race home, got to watch this show. Because I loved that whole idea of not being controlled by time.
Yeah.
Right? So when you said you were going to talk about this, I was like, ooh, we're going to talk about quantum and how she done it. And then I realized, wait, are we going to be talking about frequency resonance and what that means from a quantum aspect and a timeline aspect?
Yeah.
And that maybe all this time it has been possible, but I just thought it should look like this TV show.
Yeah, I think so.
Can we pick that apart? I mean, so what do you mean, like quantum
Yes.
leaping?
So I think that a lot of people, well, I don't really remember the show because I don't think I watched it as fervently as you did, and I don't think I've ever watched it. But my feeling is that probably the character would move from one timeline to another and he would experience something different.
Oh, he'd arrive at the timeline in a completely different body.
Oh, I see.
Like it was literally just his personality consciousness would move into a person's body and he became that person.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, fascinating. From my perspective, it's always interesting to see how Hollywood projects like this idea, right? This interesting idea of like you have different timelines, how do they make stories out of it? I'm just gonna back up and break down some things just to make sure that we're all understanding what we're talking about. Okay, so to me, a timeline is simply a certain frequency resonance of experience. So let's imagine that you have I'm just gonna make up numbers. Let's imagine that you're vibrating at the level of 30. Let's just, for the sake of argument. So at the vibration level of 30, your life looks a certain way. You're married to your husband, and however, in this experience at resonance 30, he always has a problem holding on to jobs. Okay? So that's at resonance 30.
Right.
If you can raise your frequency resonance enough, you can raise as your vibration level rises, the frequency resonance of the timeline that you occupy also can rise. So let's imagine that you're rising in your vibration level, and now all of a sudden you're at frequency resonance 42, let's just say. So in frequency resonance 42, you're actually still married to the same person, okay? It's still the same man.
Yeah.
However, in this particular timeline, he has a job that he really loves, okay? So it's very different. Same person, different experience though.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
As your frequency resonance rises again, it may be that person, that you're even married to that person, but he's doing something that is, not only does he have a job that he loves, he's actually starting to branch out and start his own company, for example.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's the same person, but your experience of them in the different resonances of the different timelines is different because they're different, because your resonance is different.
It kind of makes sense because we have this 3D linear time.
Yes.
But you're not talking about that.
No.
So you're saying that with the timeline jumping, it's really an experiential frequency resonance jump.
Yes.
Okay. And then your reality changes.
Correct.
So, okay.
Yes.
Got that.
Because when your resonance jumps, your entire reality reorganizes to that resonance. Okay? Because just imagine, if you think about vibration, if a vibration is lower and denser, it's at a certain resonance. So you'll have, for example, I can't remember the name of the man who talked about this, but he talked about all the different vibrational levels of the different emotions. It was called Power versus Force. There's a book called Power versus Force where he talks about the different vibrational levels of the different emotions.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just imagine when you're vibrating lower, you have more fear, more worry, more anxiety, more anger. As your vibration level rises, your experience emotionally is of a higher level emotion. Okay, so it might be not happiness, but it might be more like satisfaction, contentment, that type of thing, right? And then as you move up, you start to feel more things like gratitude, love, that type of thing. Okay, so if you take that idea and you extrapolate it, it's the same when it comes to your entire life. If you can maintain a certain frequency resonance, what will happen is your entire life will reorganize around it. So if your frequency resonance or vibrational level is low, it will look a certain way. As you raise your frequency resonance, your physical life will reorganize around you. So your experience of your life, how you perceive it, etc., the trajectory of your life, what you get to experience, what the future looks like, all of that changes because now the timeline is defined by a certain vibration level.
Okay, so you're kind of like the anchor. The anchor's that frequency resonance. And therefore, what happens around you has to match that frequency resonance.
Exactly.
So you create maybe a whole new reality.
Yep.
Or a slightly better reality. Whatever, but it's changed.
Yes.
Because of your frequency resonance.
Exactly.
And that you're anchoring it into the linear timeline.
Yes.
Is that how it happens?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So everything starts to, if you think about space and time, right? It's the confluence of space and time. The higher your frequency resonance is, the what you can form in the physical, in space and time changes. Because you have to remember, backing up, like backing up, you are the co-creator of your reality. Now, we did a whole episode on cracking the code of co-creation. If you don't know what we're talking about, go watch that. You are the focal point. It doesn't seem like it sometimes. It seems like life is happening to us, right? It seems like, it feels like life can be overwhelming. We can't stop it. Stuff sucks. It's just like, my health is crap. I don't have a job. I can't hang on to this, whatever.
Yeah.
That is a mirror of you on your frequency resonance, meaning what vibrational level you're at.
Yeah.
The higher you get in your frequency resonance, the better life seems.
Yeah.
Why? Because you are the co-creator. You're the center point of the reality that you're creating around you, which is also a form of timeline. Because the trajectory that you have in linear time is going to change based on your frequency resonance. Who you're going to meet.
Yeah.
Who drops away from you. What circumstances evolve. What opportunities show up. Completely change based on the frequency resonance or the vibrational level that you are and the trajectory of the linear timeline that you're on, which is defined by your frequency resonance.
Yeah. It totally makes sense because after all the work, of the frequency work, I can make sense of it now. But yeah.
And what do you mean by that for you in your experience?
Well, I think the biggest one that I can talk about, the most recent one, would be moving from one country to another.
Okay.
And we left a situation where everything was a struggle. It was a struggle. All the time was a struggle. We were in a lot of financial problems. We had a lot of financial problems. And everywhere we went, the wall just kept crumbling. I was like, what? Yeah. So all we did was we worked on ourselves, scarcity patterns, deep dives, GFCs. I don't know how many courses, how many sessions, We were committed to making that change. And the next thing, I suddenly realized we're getting on a plane and flying to a whole new country where we have this life full of abundance now. And the more, so now for us, it's like, well, we're just going to keep doing the work. We're going to keep doing the work. And the interesting thing that's happened is in doing the work, we have more contentment. And what happens after that is we don't want anything. But then what happens when we're content and we don't want anything? Everything comes.
Exactly.
It's like, what?
Yes.
This is amazing.
Yes. So the life that you had at that trajectory where you lived in that other country, so now you live in Mexico because we're here in Mexico together.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that other country where you were, the resonance that you were was much lower. And so the physical mirroring of that was one where it was harder for you financially, I would say health-wise also.
Yes.
I would say just as a friend, having observed you, even in the family dynamic, like your relationship within your family has changed from an outside perspective quite significantly in a way that's quite beautiful to witness.
Yeah.
All that's changed because you were the one who started doing the work, frequency work, and then I think you started playing in the background for your kids.
Oh yeah, every night leaving your bed without this. Can you put the frequency work on?
Exactly. It helped them sleep. And then I think your husband started to do it.
Yeah.
So everyone started doing it. And because you guys are in a mastermind, it started to pick up momentum.
Yeah.
Is what it seemed like. And then it was sort of like you couldn't tolerate anymore the physical situation that you're in because it wasn't matching the resonance that you were at. From an outside perspective, this is what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
And then somehow, magically, because the physical was not matching the resonance that you guys were, the opportunity came in to leave that country. And as soon as you moved country, like literally, you guys got on that plane, and it seemed to me, I was like, whoa, you could feel you guys moving into a different timeline. Because all of a sudden, you went from a pretty rainy country, actually, to a country full of sun, full of light. Your lives here are physically more abundant. It seems like the dynamic of the family is like more joyful even. It was really awesome before, but it's like really joyful now, I feel like. And it feels like it just glows, your life, I feel like, from the outside.
And that's how it does feel for us inside. And that's why we're so content. And then the more opportunities come, it's like, what? We never asked for anything else.
Yeah, and then it came.
Yeah, and it does. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't really, it's funny. I don't take stock, I was going to say we, but not everybody's like me, so I can speak for myself. I haven't taken stock like that. And it's nice to have a moment to appreciate, whoa, actually, yeah. You know, we did do a lot of work as a family, as a mastermind, and we did create a whole new reality. Wow, that's magic, eh? What power.
Yeah.
What power.
Totally. And when you come together as a mastermind like that, it's really amazing. So for those of you with kids, you think that nothing's happening with them. But it really can, and they're quite powerful beings, some of these kids, actually. My point simply is, we think of quantum jumping as if it's like some magical thing where you go like blast through the universe and like jump through, I don't know, something else, so you're in a different life.
Okay, can we come back to that?
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It can be what we're talking about, which has to do with your frequency resonance in this lifetime experience. So you were going to ask.
Yeah, because we were talking about timeline.
Yep.
I was going to ask you what's the difference between, shift in timeline and the quantum leaping that you've talked about.
Yeah. So I'm going to distinguish between alternate or past lifetime. So if you don't, I spent an entire episode talking about past lifetimes. So if you haven't watched that episode, I would recommend going to watch that, okay? Because it breaks down what past or what I call alternate lifetimes really are. Okay. So I'd recommend doing that. So to me, a timeline shift is different from a lifetime shift, which is actually a bigger timeline shift. Does that make sense? So backing up, you have different incarnations, okay, or different experiences of you as different lineages, different, experiences in different parts of the world. Where, for example, like for you, Fee, you may not be like white-skinned. You may be dark-skinned in a different lifetime, or I could be male instead of female, or whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. So with these alternate lifetimes, you have to remember. Okay, back up again. So your consciousness is projecting itself through the prism of time and space.
Yeah.
Okay. So here it is, coming through time and space.
Yeah.
So to understand past lives, just a quick summary for those of you who did not watch the episode. So you as infinite indestructible consciousness, remember it's infinite, are projecting yourself, let's just say, your experience, your awareness, through the prism or the lens of space and time. Okay, it's like a prism. So it like refracts, meaning that your consciousness, you as consciousness, are aware of different life experiences.
Happening at the same time.
Happening at the same time of the eternal now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I know it's confusing because there's two forms of time.
Yeah.
There's spirit time, which is the eternal now, which is the level at which everything on spirit level happens. And then there's what we call linear time, which our minds try to use to understand past, present, future. Okay? So I know this might be confusing because I'm trying not to conflate the two kinds of time. But you as infinite, indestructible consciousness are aware of everything in the eternal now. So those lifetimes are all happening concomitantly in the eternal now.
Right.
Okay? Not in linear time, in the eternal now. And you as consciousness are aware of all those lifetimes happening. You as a human are in a single lifetime.
Yeah.
Right? In the little S self where you think you're separate, finite, and I'm in this body. This body is mine. This is what it exists as. So this is your identity, this rendering of you. You're not really aware of the other lifetimes because here you are in this body and you think this is you. There are times when you can have bleed through where you become aware of different lifetimes. Okay, for some people it's really scary and they can't control it. And this is what sometimes schizophrenics experience. Or you'll have like a flash through. Like for example, I remember I was at a personal development event and we're supposed to be walking over fire. This was part of the like rah-rah, like we're supposed to like be able to control our minds, et cetera, over the body, yeah? And as I was walking over the fire, I had this incredibly strong bleed through, it was actually perplexing, of me being burned at the stake, which wasn't like a really great thing to be having in that particular moment in time. Quite honestly, it was pretty terrible. But anyway, that's what happened. Because what happened is for a moment in that, whatever that experience was, I had access to that eternal now. Does that make sense? I was going beyond my physical little S self and was able to perceive another timeline, like another lifetime is what I'm trying to say. Make sense?
I don't want to break your train of thought there, but as you're talking, it's like, so what was the purpose of that bleed through? Is there a purpose of that bleed through?
Yes. So sometimes when the bleed throughs happen, it's to resolve it.
Oh.
Especially as your frequency resonance rises. So in that moment, when I had that bleed through of being burned at the stake for being a witch, actually, in that lifetime, and I felt like I'd been abandoned by God, for me in that life, it was to resolve that lifetime, to have that feeling, to release the emotion, to release the feeling abandoned. So that in this, because the lifetime that you're in now, where you're doing the frequency work, your resonance is higher. The one that's the most dominant can influence the others. So meaning, the higher and higher frequency resonance can become in this lifetime, the more you can resolve the lifetimes, the other lifetimes. You can resolve the pain, the wounding, the hurt, the scarcity, the whatever, the trauma, okay? Because this lifetime is higher in resonance.
So if I'm raising my resonance like that and raising the frequency resonance, so if you're resolving issues from previous or currently happening other lifetimes in the eternal now,
yes,
and you're resolving issues, does that mean then that you encapsulate yourself and you become this, I guess, coming back to source as your original state?
Yes. So you're clarifying the whole, right, of the human experience, right? Because it's still a human experience in these different lifetimes.
I suppose, because if you're existing in another part of that eternal now, so is somebody else.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yes. So you're resolving. And as you resolve these different past lifetimes, what happens is that the whole clarifies, meaning the whole of you, all the different people that you interact with. This is all kind of a web, right? It's not like a separate thing. I'm talking about them as if they're separate. They're not.
Yeah.
But as you resolve, let's just say, you resolve a lifetime where you were wounded by someone else. You resolve that lifetime because you've released that wounding, the trauma, whatever. The people in that lifetime also start to resolve because you've clarified.
Yeah.
And then there's a ripple effect, actually, which is kind of really huge. So what happens is, as you start to release the, let's call them lifetime woundings, distortions, because you're at a level at this lifetime that you start to, as a whole, in the human experience, rise in frequency resonance, which has a ripple effect into the one. As you do that, like there's a collective, let's call it collective, but it's you, right? The collective you in the human experience starts to gain momentum. So it's like you're helping yourself, right? Because as you're resolving and all these other lifetimes are resolving, everything starts to rise, which means in this lifetime, you can more easily jump into a higher resonating timeline.
So is that what you're calling a quantum leap?
A quantum leap to me is when you actually leap in consciousness, to me.
Yeah.
Okay? So when you actually gain enough momentum that you can move from one consciousness level to another. And I feel like that is what we're doing now.
Yeah, it sounds like that. Because while you were talking as well, the other thing that was coming in was, okay, oftentimes I could feel certain feelings and there's no logical reason why I'm feeling it. It's like there's nothing happening in my life. I haven't been triggered and I'm getting completely confused and perplexed. Like, why am I feeling it? And it's so deep inside. I can't pinpoint where it is. Is that maybe another, bleed through or whatever?
That you're resolving the grief. Because in this, let's call it the focus of this lifetime, okay, that your human mind focuses on is on this lifetime, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So because your personal, I'm talking about you, Fiona, your personal resonance is high enough, you're able to, without needing to understand it, have a story behind it, have the full picture behind it, resolving the distortion that's happening in a different lifetime.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yes.
So as you resolve that, then, like I said, that whole ripple effect starts to happen, which gives you more momentum in the lifetime in which you're currently focused, which is this one.
Yes.
Make sense?
So you don't need to worry about the rest.
No.
You just need to stay focused.
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
Okay. And then whatever happens and comes.
Yes.
You just resolve it. Just keep resolving. Just keep resolving. Just
Yes.
keep resolving.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then the quantum leap starts to happen when we, in, let's call it the focus of this lifetime, because this is where we are at this current moment, has enough momentum that you as a little S self has enough jump in your own resonance that you recognize the big S self, you recognize your connection to source, and you are vibrating high enough that your consciousness can move to a new set point.
Right.
So the whole consciousness jumps. And that's what I call a quantum leap.
Now, the other question I was going to have with that then, to have the quantum leap, do we need to have other aspects of self or completely different beings that we haven't even met yet anchoring in that new consciousness for us to entrain to? Or is it just a given that if we do the work, we will ultimately rise to a new consciousness that we know nothing about quite right now?
Well, I don't think you need, this is my perspective.
Yeah.
You have it all within you.
Yep.
That's my feeling.
Everybody,
okay?
yeah.
Everybody has it. Whether or not a being chooses to accelerate themselves is up to the being on their own, right? Do you feel like you want to awaken this lifetime? Are there beings that anchor in a higher resonating order or have more access to it sooner?
Yeah.
Yes. Is there only one? No. There are multiple beings that are helping at this time.
Yeah.
Some of them have just been born. Some of them are now children. Some of them are teenagers. Some of them are young adults. Some of them will never, ever get in front of anyone and talk about anything having to do with spirituality. They simply are who they are. And the frequency resonance that they are ripples out and has an effect in the one. So yes, there are beings that anchor in a higher level order of consciousness. There is never one. There's always more than one. We're not at the level of consciousness now where there's only one.
Yeah.
There's always those right now, especially with the momentum of consciousness moving at the way it is. There are beings that are helping to accelerate all of us. And so my feeling is that so I said a couple things there at the same time. One is that you have it within yourself. Should you choose to, it's completely your choice. It's not bad or better or anything. It's simply a choice.
Yeah.
Do you want to rise in your frequency resonance? Do you want to take the tools to help you to do that? And yes, there are also beings that are helping to anchor in this new consciousness. Whether you're aware of them or not, whether they're in front of a camera, whether they're public, whether they're sweeping your streets, it doesn't matter, but they exist. So yes, both.
Yeah. It's kind of like the secondary gain, I call it, right? The primary gain in doing the work is this level of contentment and wanting to find out more. How much more at ease can I be in this human body, but as an indestructible consciousness, you know? And then the secondary gain is that, okay, well, you know, there is another level of consciousness. And that's going to be available. But, you know, we know nothing about that level of consciousness, and that might bring with it a whole host of other things that we have to learn to navigate and rise above. But that's the secondary gain part, really, because ultimately the primary part is having the authority and being the master of this little S self, I guess we could call it. Is that right?
Exactly. And clarifying your remembering of your connection to the one.
Yeah.
And as you remember that, that's really the only thing. to me. The most important thing is the question that I always ask at the beginning of the GFC. How can I become more aware of my connection only to pure source?
Oh, it's so invaluable, that question.
Yeah, because it's like, because that's everything. That is it. That is the primary function of what you're here for, is to remember that. And it just, please know, you're always connected. Whether or not you're aware of it is something different.
That's a different story.
It's a totally different story.
Because it's never not there, or you wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So a lot of people will think, I need to feel more connected. I'm like, you may need to feel more connected, but you already are connected.
Yes.
Yeah? So I just wanted to mention that. And I feel like this rise in this consciousness level, it's already available to us. Many people are already starting to live it. That's when that experience that you talked of, like not needing anything, not wanting anything, and yet all this brilliance shows up, all this abundance, all this magic, and it just grows and grows and grows without even you saying, like, I would really like to have the experience of the red Corvette with the like shiny rims, and I'm wearing this and I'm doing that, which is all fine. But you're not actually visualizing any of that.
No.
But yet somehow, magically, these amazing experiences of abundance show up in front of you.
Can I share a story?
Yeah,
just
please.
as you were talking
Yeah.
there? So my eldest, he was having a little bit of a problem settling here. He was 16, 17 when we arrived. And he thought we were only going to be in Mexico for a year.
Yeah.
But we all loved it that much that, we didn't want to go back. Why would we go back, you know? And he was struggling a bit. Not a huge amount, but it was enough that he was annoyed and it was becoming a bit of an issue. And I remember sitting outside, Gary and myself, we'd been doing a GFC and stuff, and we were in a really lovely place. And I said, what would be if he got a Mexican girlfriend and his best mate, whom, he wanted to go back. It was only for the school and his best mate that he wanted to go back for. Well, it'd be really good if his best mate moved as well. That would just make everything, literally within a month, he had a Mexican girlfriend. And 2 weeks after the conversation I was having with my husband, his best mate rang him and said, "Oh, Aidan, sorry, mate, we're moving." And I was just like, oh. And there was a small part of me felt a little bit guilty that, oh my goodness, did we do that? Like, did we create that or enforce that on him?
Yeah.
But
No.
it's a win-win. The
Yeah.
guy he could easily give up the country that we were in.
Yeah.
And then he was in love.
Yeah.
It's like, that's magic.
Yeah, totally. And really what it was what you were hoping for was a higher resonating order of him.
Yeah.
It wasn't oppressive. You're just like, what you were wishing for in that moment was for him to feel free and happy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like you were conniving to like get him to meet a Mexican girl,
There's no way we could have made that happen. It was so funny how the whole thing, and that's the magic of the universe. My tiny little mind could never have created what had just happened. Never in a million years. It just didn't have that, little ass power to make that happen.
Yeah.
I didn't have it.
Yeah.
But when I let go, and I don't know what I did, but
Well, you actually jumped into a different timeline.
Ah.
So I'm just going to talk about this because we've been talking about timeline.
Yeah.
So after that GFC, what happened was you had a mastermind, you and your husband. You were up in terms of your frequency resonance. You were dreaming together of like something better. So now here we are together, the two of you, creating something. And as you're creating, because in the joy of the creation, there's another bump in terms of your frequency resonance, you see. So as that happened, you moved into the frequency resonance of what you are creating, that timeline where that existed. You just simply moved into it.
Okay, so maybe if somebody's listening to this, because actually what happened was we were remembering the happiness of that first love, or when Gary and I first met, that feeling that you have and how your whole world is just dictated by, when am I going to see them again?
Yeah.
And just that ease of, if that person lets go, then I don't have to think about it. I can just move on. Yeah. And we were actually just feeling into that. So I guess that's what you're describing as moving into the creation of.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it easier for anybody listening.
Yeah. So from my perspective, it's even actually less granular than that. So when I feel it, it's simply that you were in this state, and whatever you guys were doing, your resonance was rising. Okay, so that's all, right? So whatever it was that you were doing in the experience that you were having together,
Yeah.
here you are in the resonance because of the GFC. Your resonance is both up. You're both open. You start to remember something that's of a high resonance. You start to dream a future that's of a higher resonance. So do you see, between the two of you, you're co-creating a higher and higher spiral of a higher and higher frequency resonance.
Yeah.
And because you guys are who you are, you just moved up in terms of your frequency resonance and held it. So as a result, the timeline that you're in shifted. You just simply stepped into the timeline that you were dreaming together. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, now I know what to do for the next one.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like, and the thing is, because you didn't believe that it was possible, you were just messing, right?
We were just messing.
You were just messing. Wouldn't it be great if he fell in love with a Mexican girl and this thing happened?
Yeah.
But you're just messing around, right? But you weren't attached to it. You weren't
No,
like,
no.
if this doesn't happen, like, right? So there's freedom in it. There's like play in it. It's very light and it's higher in its resonance. People don't allow themselves to dream. And in the dreaming, what can happen is your resonance can buoy up.
Yeah.
So in that allowing of that dreaming, it wasn't like you were like, if this doesn't happen, it's terrible.
yeah.
He's never gonna have a great life here. Like you weren't really thinking, you were just playing. And so as a result, do you see what I'm saying? So in that, you're already creating what it is that you were moving into. Yeah.
I think we just covered a couple of topics there. Never mind quantum leap and timeline jumping. We just covered creation manifestation at the same time.
Very much. Yeah.
Okay, so the take home is timelines are available and accessible.
Yeah.
All you have to do is raise your frequency.
Yes. If you raise your vibration or you raise your frequency resonance, the options you have exponentially jump. Okay? Really. And especially once you hit a certain tipping point. Like you'll notice that like people at the beginning feel like it's really hard sometimes because there's so much they have to clear. There's so much they're dealing with. There's so much suffering in their life.
It's never gonna happen.
You feel like it's never going to happen. It's happening to everyone else except for you. You suck. You know, like, why am I spending all this money? Why, this is all nonsense.
Yeah.
All, right? All
I've
that
been
happens.
there.
Yeah, I've been there too. Right? This is all bullshit, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? And if you keep going beyond your mind of it's not possible, you can't, you're not empowered, whatever your story is, if you keep going, what will happen is you'll tip past that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, things will start to reorganize. You're like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, or
It does.
different people come in or different opportunities show up and then it just kind of spirals into this bigger and bigger thing.
Yeah.
So, see, the thing isn't, like the idea of quantum leaping is amazing because we can. I just want to say this because I think it's important. We are now at the point in consciousness where it is possible in the body. Right? It is now becoming possible. We're in this pivotal time where we can be embodied, be aware of ourselves as the big S self or as infinite indestructible consciousness, have enough momentum in our vibrational rate that we can start to move into this quantum leap, into this new consciousness. It is already happening. People are already experiencing it. So yes, it is the unknown, and it is already happening. So the best thing to do is to not expect anything, because when people think quantum leaping, what is it going to look like? What do I have to experience?
It's a TV show.
Yeah, it's a TV show. Yeah, it really limits what it is that is possible.
Yeah.
So in order to quantum leap, ironically, you have to let go of all that mental expectation, story, assumption, conclusion of what you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
The more you have that, the less you're going to be able to do it. I know it's ironic and terrible, but there you go. You know? Yeah. If you want to start to be able to shift in your timeline experience, then I recommend listening to the group frequency calibration meditation associated with this episode, which will start to give you more momentum and allow you to let go of the mind even more. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the subscribe button. We're about to start the group frequency calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and where change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear to the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.